Hi, it's Congressman Jamie Raskin on Friday, May 19th, coming to you from Maryland's beautiful 8th Congressional District. Happy AAPI Heritage Month. And we have, for my favorite time of the week, local hero, a really terrific local hero for you, Delegate Lily Qi, who is also about to be honored as Legislator of the Year by the Montgomery County Chamber of Commerce. Lily's got an extraordinary life story, and she has done remarkable work on behalf of Montgomery County, on behalf of clean energy, renewable energy, small business in Annapolis. And for all these reasons, we're recognizing her as this week's local hero. Lily, congratulations.
Thank you so much, Congressman Raskin. I'm extremely honored. And I have to say, I'm also so honored that you are my congressman representing us.
Well, kind of you to say, Lily, that not everybody knows your very compelling story. I mean, you came over to America as an adult, not as a kid, right?
That's right.
This was back in 1988 or 89?
It was 1989. It was a very dramatic year, as people can remember. I came by myself when China opened its door to the rest of the world. I had an opportunity to study in America, landed in the middle of cornfields in Indiana from Shanghai. You know, can you imagine the dramatic cultural adjustment? I actually had to use a Walkman to record the lectures in order to keep up, even though I studied English in China, but that kind of English I learned was nothing compared to what I needed to survive in America. So it was dramatic cultural and a linguistic adjustment, but I learned so much, and it was pleasantly surprised at how kind and welcoming America and Americans were to strangers like me. And I will never forget that experience. Really planted seeds in terms of my learning to give back and pay forward.
So we've got cornfields in Maryland too. How did you find your way from the cornfields of Iowa to the Free State?
Indiana, yeah.
Oh, Indiana.
Yeah, close. Well, I progressed, as a first generation immigrant, we didn't have other families. My husband, who's also a Chinese immigrant, and I just had to build from scratch and learn by in trial and error. We chased another degree, another low wage jobs until we found, Maryland, Montgomery County as the place we chose to settle down. So in between, we went to Ohio, West Virginia, of all places, and then Washington, D.C. And when we wanted to buy a home and look for a school for our little boy, we found the perfect community, a growing Asian American community, which is the one that I right now represent, with the highest concentration of Asian Americans, which is North Potomac and District 15 of Maryland State Legislative District. Yeah.
Well, that's extraordinary. Well, you did find the perfect place to live in Montgomery County, Maryland, and certainly perfect for you in terms of welcoming immigrants, welcoming diversity, and finding in the community that different tapestry of cultures that make life so exciting here. But you've amazingly gone in, 2 decades from being an immigrant who could not really speak the language fluently to an elected representative in the Maryland General Assembly.
3 decades now. Yes.
Thank you. 3 decades. Yeah.
Yes.
Well, but that's an extraordinary thing. So you've spent a lot of time, I know, working on environmental stuff. You've also spent a lot of time working to champion small business. And tell us how you think about your priorities generally in Annapolis.
Yeah. I when I decided to run for office, I said, I can bring some different perspectives to policymaking table, and I want to speak for the people like me who did not even understand the political systems, right? I believe the first generation immigrants are the voices that's missing, and voices that are missing, but no one knows until they realize how valuable our voices could be. So I wanted to make sure that through my work, I can help make Maryland more competitive and inclusive. It's not either or. We can be more competitive and compassionate at the same time, and also more sustainable. So I focused a lot on growing industries of the future, because I grew up in a society at a time when there was no private sector or nonprofit sector. There was only government dictating what everybody should do or where they should even live, right? And so I saw the collapse and the failure of that kind of system, which is why I have a very strong appreciation for the business community, for the private sector, and for the nonprofit sector, because this is how a healthy society should work, and how the government can play its role to be an enabler for different thriving sectors. So I focused a lot on economic competitiveness, also because I happen to have an economic development background, both in DC 20 years ago during the city's revitalization and turnaround, and I saw how it transformed, and also working for former county executive Ike Leggett on cultural competency issues, community engagement, and economic development policies. So I bring my experience to legislature and worked on industries of the future, from biotech to clean energy, which is a green bank that my bill established, and also manufacturing. Now I'm a big time champion in Annapolis on manufacturing, because it grows middle wage and middle class jobs. And the pandemic really showed the importance of having domestic supply chain. It's a national security issue as well as an economic issue. So I carved out a strong niche on economic competitiveness. At the same time, as someone who speaks English as a second language and went through all the struggles as a new immigrant, I want to speak for the people who feel marginalized. As a mother of a gay son, I also feel strongly the LGBTQ communities that need to be protected. So my bill led to the establishment of the Governor's Commission on LGBTQ Affairs. My work with the Maryland Board of Elections also led to multilingual voter registration forms, not just Asian languages, but top languages, so that people can download and fill out, feel more comfortable. And I also, tried, but unsuccessfully, to improve our election system, to make it more understandable and more friendly to people who are in the middle, and the independent voters, because the large number of independent voters are immigrants of all cultures. And my 2018 campaign really informed me how to reform our system to make it more immigrant friendly. So those are the areas I feel strongly about: people who are invisible, marginalized, from home care workers to homeless, to people who speak different languages.
Well, what a remarkable program you have. Let me ask you about the international situation, if I could just borrow
Sure.
your life experience and your policy insight for a moment. I mean, the Americans are obviously in a competitive posture vis-a-vis China in terms of economics, in terms of military, national security to a certain extent as well. We want to be very careful that our international competitive posture does not shade into racism and hatred of the Chinese people or Asian people. And I wonder how you walk that tightrope, distinguishing between China's government and the Communist Party, and maybe their conduct towards the Uyghurs or Tibet, versus the cultural connections that we want to maintain.
Thank you for the great question. I think the fact that those of us who grew up in that system chose to be Americans, our country of allegiance, tells you, right, we subscribe to American principles of democracy, of individual rights. And so it's extremely important that we celebrate Asian Americans as Americans, and understand that we're as American as anyone, no matter which language we speak or which country we happen to be born in or raised in, and not demonize people who look Asian or Chinese, because the tension is not going to go away. China is going to be there, and the tension probably will only escalate in our lifetime, right? It's not going in the right direction, but what we can do is to make sure we do what you did, and you were such a champion for Asian Americans, and to denounce those racist policies that we're now start seeing at the state level, not just the federal level. I called out one of the legislators for his racist remarks, and I was not wrong, because this session, and that was 3 years ago, this session, he introduced a bill to prohibit Chinese natives or anyone with connection with bank account in China or something, doing business with China, from buying land. And somebody rightfully pointed out by asking him, do you mean like Donald Trump cannot own land in Maryland? Because that speaks to, right, how broad brush those things are that could hurt so many more Americans. And I think it's more important than ever for us to be vigilant, but also for immigrant Americans and Asian Americans in particular to lean in, to really speak out, not only when it's moment of crisis, but also just to get used to voting, running for office, supporting the legislators and leaders who are aligned with our long-term interests, and also build bridges with other minority communities, because that's the only way to make sure we thrive as Americans.
Lily, you have a fascinating life and career and an inspiring political agenda. And it is such a great honor to be able to denominate you our local hero of the week for all the extraordinary work you do representing your constituents in Annapolis. And thank you for that. And we look forward to working with you in the future.
Thank you so much. I'm very honored. And thank you for your leadership in every way.